I will talk today about the shadows that Germany's draconian self-determination law is casting on lesbians. In our LBORI statement of 2023, titled Effects of Losing Lesbian-Only Spaces and How to Get Them Back, we outlined how the activists of gender identity ideology have increasingly erased lesbian spaces in Germany. Since the emergence of the Self-Determination Act that will enter into force on the 1st of November 2024, permitting a change in one's sex entry in the civil registry at will, things have become worse for lesbians. Point 1, physical and verbal violence by trans activists against lesbians have been widespread. What you see, lesbians carrying the Labris banner at Christopher Street Day in Cologne 2022 were physically attacked by queer activists. Criminal charges were filed against the perpetrator and criminal investigations followed. Participants of the Real Dyke March 2023 in Berlin were labeled Hitler admirers by a queer online magazine and criminal charges filed against its owner. You can imagine what it means in Germany to be called a Hitler admirer. The Real Dyke March has been completely banned on Instagram, and WDI Germany has been completely banned on X, former Twitter. This post of Lesbian Action Center Reloaded on Instagram was banned. It shows a lesbian holding a Labris banner at CSD Cologne 2022, what you have seen before. Quote, your photo goes against our community guidelines on dangerous individuals and organizations. Now the good news, upon complaint, the photo has been reinstalled. Young lesbians in particular will be affected by the misogynistic and homophobic transgender ideology. During a sensitive stage of life, they will have little chance to develop a lesbian identity. They will get lost to the lesbian cause, and the Self-Determination Act will make it easy. Trans activists are also pushing for coverage of so-called gender reassignment surgery using health insurance funds. If this succeeds, many young lesbians will certainly undergo surgery to become, quote, trans men, unquote. The result will be lifelong dependency on hormones, often pain, depression, suicide attempts, and in some cases, detransition. We have contacts to some detransitioners. Participants of the Self-Determination Conference in June in Berlin who dream of a bureaucracy recently called on the governing mayor, Kai Wegner, to lobby his Christian Democratic Party for inclusion of sexual identity in Article 3, Paragraph 3 of our basic law or constitution. This would protect pedosexuals from discrimination along with lesbians, gay men, and so-called transgender people. If the governing mayor does not comply with his request, he won't be allowed to take part in the Christopher Street Day parade. As a consequence, the governing mayor asked one of the senators to draft an application for the Bundesrat, that is a federal second chamber. That kind of horse trading has actually worked, and it shows the brazenness of the trans activists and the weakness of politicians in Germany, even among the Christian Democrats. Finally, trans activists are feeling increasingly encouraged by the Self-Determination Act to conquer all women's spaces. Lesbians will be affected as well. A man claiming a woman identity demanded entry into female-designated fitness rooms in Erlangen, Bavaria, southern Germany. After admission was denied by management, he filed a complaint with the Federal Anti-Discrimination Commissioner, who recommended that the manager pay €1,000 as compensatory damages due to sex discrimination with no legal basis. The manager refused to pay. Now the claim for compensatory damages has increased to €2,500, and the case will probably go to court. Mass media are on the case. The increasing pressure on lesbians is causing an attitude of anticipatory obedience, either because some organizations fear either financial consequences or fear being ostracized by so-called LSBTIQ+ groups, or because they actually believe the lies of gender identity ideology. And this is causing a divide among lesbians, to be realistic. Here are a few examples of anticipatory obedience. The lesbian-run Begine, formerly the last women's pub in Berlin, is excluding lesbians if they don't tolerate inclusion of men claiming a woman identity. Begine called this its door policy and enforced it against members of Lesbian Action Center Latz Reloaded. Spinnboden Lesbenarchiv und Bibliothek Berlin e.V., founded in 1983, which holds archive materials of some of the pioneer lesbian groups in Germany. For example, our predecessor, Lesbisches Aktionszentrum West-Berlin, wrote new guidelines and now calls itself a lesbian feminist queer archive. This means that lesbian visibility and our history itself is under threat from trans activists due to the lack of secure lesbian archives. A majority of participants at the Lesben Frühlingstreffen 2024, a big traditional lesbian event since 1973, has voted to admit men claiming a woman identity starting in 2025. What you see here is the application to vote on that question. The Lesbian Project Ruth, Rat und Tat, offene Initiative lesbischer Frauen e.V. in Berlin, is now queer. Its residential project is advertising the idea of a communal living of lesbians and queer women. That means men claiming a female identity. At the upcoming Christopher Street Day 2024, quote, the Lesbian and Finta Pride Party, Finta means women, intersex, non-binary, transgender, agender, is a strong contrast to the previous large lesbian party at Christopher Street Day. Now, a couple of words to the relationship among radical feminist lesbian and other radical feminist groups in Germany. In general, radical feminist groups don't actively support lesbian issues. Some of them support lesbian issues sporadically. There's not much sisterhood among other larger radical feminist lesbian groups. Examples of erosion of lesbian solidarity. A left-wing lesbian group boycotted a demonstration of the Real Dyke March because of its alleged proximity to right-wing media. A former umbrella organization for lesbian groups is now supporting the Self-Determination Act. It is favoring the amendment of Article 3, Paragraph 3, Grundgesetz, Constitution, and it is labeling gender-critical women TERFs. The result is the situation of lesbians in patriarchal society is no longer the focus of lesbian political analysis. It disappears into the intersectional hierarchy of victims and destabilizes lesbian solidarity. However, there are positive examples of lesbian initiatives as well. The Real Dyke March, a small radical feminist lesbian group, organizes annual demonstrations during Pride Month. It is cooperating with other radical feminist lesbian and radical feminist groups. Lesbian Resistance, Lesbian Unite. Lesbians should resist this disastrous development by a couple of proposals. Requesting public debates among lesbians women on preserving lesbian women only access to autonomous female spaces. Requiring lesbian-only spaces using their own resources. Forming radical feminist lesbian organizations and applying to join LBORI, what Lauren said before, to fight for lesbian rights globally. We have recognized the way out of the fragmentation of the movement and towards strengthening and maintaining the radical feminist lesbian movement is through mutual strengthening and solidarity nationally and internationally, and the involvement of international bodies. We recommend strengthening international solidarity against aggressive neo-patriarchy. We support growing of the LBORI network by recruiting other radical feminist lesbian organizations. Thank you.